In 2026, a $40,000 car is considered normal. And that's exactly the problem. Because the median American worker earns somewhere between $50,000 and $65,000 a year, yet dealerships keep selling vehicles that cost nearly an entire year's salary. So, who's actually buying them? When you dig into the numbers, the answer is a lot more surprising and a lot more troubling than most people realize. And before this video is over, you'll see why millions of Americans may be driving vehicles they can't truly afford. So, who can actually afford a $40,000 car in 2026? The math is about to get brutal. Welcome to Gray Finance. I'm Gray. I believe good financial decisions aren't about luck. They're about understanding the numbers behind them, and honestly, most people never really see those numbers. This channel is about making money and investing simple, practical, and actually useful in real life. No hype, no get rich quick stuff. Just clear, data driven insights you can actually use. All right, let's break down what owning a modern vehicle really costs. And here's where the story starts getting really interesting. What surprised me when researching this topic wasn't that cars are expensive. Most people already know that. What surprised me was how quickly vehicle prices have climbed compared to incomes. Industry sales data shows the average new vehicle transaction price is now hovering around the upper $40,000 range. Let that sink in for a second. That's not a luxury vehicle. That's average. 20 years ago, a price like that would have sounded expensive. Today, it's become normal. And that's exactly why so many Americans feel like they're working harder while getting less for their money. Meanwhile, income hasn't kept pace. The median American worker isn't earning double what they earned a decade ago, but vehicle prices in many categories have surged dramatically. The result is simple. A growing number of buyers can only make the math work by borrowing more money for longer periods of time. And that's where things start getting dangerous. What surprised me even more was what happened to loan terms. According to Experian lending data, the average new vehicle loan now stretches close to 6 years, and many borrowers are signing contracts for 7 years or longer. Think about that. 7 years. Some people won't even keep the same vehicle that long. The industry found a way to make higher prices look affordable. They simply spread the payments across more months. The monthly payment looks smaller. The total financial commitment becomes much larger. Most people never stop to calculate the difference. And here's another number that caught my attention. Recent consumer finance data shows Americans are carrying record levels of auto loan debt. Yep, that's real. Millions of households are now balancing vehicle payments alongside rising housing costs, groceries, insurance premiums, healthcare expenses, and credit card balances. Individually, each bill seems manageable. Together, they create pressure, a lot of pressure. Then I found something that explains why so many people feel financially stuck. Consumer spending surveys consistently show that many middle-class families aren't necessarily running out of money today. They're running out of margin. That's an important distinction, because when you have margin, an unexpected expense is frustrating. When you don't have margin, an unexpected expense becomes a financial emergency. A medical bill, a job loss, a major repair. One bad month can suddenly expose a budget that looked fine on the surface. And that's what makes the repossession numbers so concerning. The scary part isn't that some Americans can't afford these vehicles. The scary part is how many people appear to be affording them right up until the moment life gets expensive, because lenders don't approve loans based on whether you'll be comfortable. They approve loans based on whether you qualify. Those are two very different things, and once you understand that distinction, you start seeing the entire car market differently. So, who can actually afford a $40,000 car in 2026? Well, after digging through the numbers, I think that's a wrong question. The better question is, who can afford everything that comes with a $40,000 car? Because here's the thing, most people know their monthly payment. Very few know their true monthly cost, and those are not the same thing. Let's go back to Mike. Remember Mike? 34 years old, warehouse supervisor, married, one daughter, makes about $68,000 a year. On paper, Mike bought a $40,000 SUV, but that's not what he actually bought. He bought a monthly financial obligation, and once you start adding everything together, the picture changes fast. Let's assume Mike puts a small down payment on the vehicle and finances the rest. His payment comes out to roughly $650 per month. Most people stop there. The dealership hopes you stop there, but the payment is only the beginning. Full coverage insurance for a newer vehicle can easily cost another $180 to $300 per month, depending on age, driving record, and location. For many younger drivers, it's even higher. What surprised me when researching this is how often insurance gets completely ignored during the buying process. People shop for the payment, then discover the insurance afterward. Next comes fuel. A typical SUV driven 12,000 to 15,000 miles per year can easily burn through $150 to $250 per month in gasoline. That number changes with fuel prices, but it never goes to zero. The vehicle keeps costing money long after the excitement of buying it fades. Then there are maintenance costs, oil changes, brake service, battery replacement, unexpected repairs. Routine maintenance alone can average hundreds of dollars annually, and that's assuming nothing major breaks. Now, let's talk about something almost nobody budgets for: tires. Truck and SUV tires are expensive, really expensive. A full set can cost anywhere from $800 to $1,600 depending on size and quality. That's not an upgrade, that's basic ownership. Eventually, every owner pays it. And then there's registration. Many buyers barely think about it until the renewal notice arrives. In some states, the cost is manageable. In others, it can be surprisingly painful. California vehicle registration on newer vehicles can approach $900 per year. That's another expense quietly waiting in the background. But now we get to the biggest cost of all, the one almost nobody talks about: depreciation. And this is where the math gets brutal. The moment a new vehicle leaves the dealership, it starts losing value. Not slowly, immediately. Many vehicles lose thousands of dollars during the first year alone. And over several years, depreciation often becomes the single largest ownership expense. What surprised me when looking at the data is that many buyers obsess over saving $20 a month on a payment while ignoring hundreds of dollars a month disappearing through depreciation. That's like worrying about a dripping faucet while your roof is collapsing. When you spread depreciation across monthly ownership costs, another $300 to $500 per month isn't unusual depending on the vehicle. Let that sink in. You're paying real money every month for an asset that is becoming worth less. Now, let's add everything together: $650 payment, $250 insurance, $200 fuel, $100 maintenance reserve, $75 registration, $400 depreciation. That's roughly $1,675 every single month. Not $650, $1,675. And suddenly, Mike isn't spending 15% of his take home pay on transportation. He's spending a huge portion of it. Wild, right? And here's something Nick never really dug into: reliability. Because modern vehicles are becoming more complex. Turbocharged engines, advanced electronics, touchscreen systems controlling critical functions, expensive sensors, complicated drivetrains. You're paying luxury level prices for vehicles that increasingly resemble rolling computers. Consumer reliability surveys continue to show major repair concerns across several popular models from major manufacturers. And that's the part that genuinely makes me angry. Some buyers are signing 7-year loans on vehicles that may need expensive repairs before the loan is even paid off. Think about how crazy that sounds. You're still making payments while fixing problems. Then there's the leasing trap, and nobody talks about this enough. A huge percentage of new vehicles are leased rather than purchased. Dealerships love leases. Why? Because many customers simply return the vehicle and start another payment cycle, again and again and again. You spend years making payments and often end with nothing to show for it. Now, let's zoom out. Imagine Mike chooses a cheaper vehicle and frees up just $700 per month. Not $700 per week, $700 per month. If he invested that money into a simple S&P 500 index fund and earned roughly historical long-term market returns, the results become staggering. Over 30 years, that contribution could potentially grow to around $1 million. Yep, 1 million. And this is the part nobody in your life is going to tell you. That $1 million isn't just a number. It's options, it's freedom, it's flexibility, it's the ability to retire earlier, the ability to weather financial storms, the ability to help your children, the ability to choose work because you want to, not because you have to. That is the real cost hiding behind an expensive vehicle, not the payment, the opportunity you gave up. And now the question becomes, if the real ownership cost is this high, what should people actually do instead? Because in the next section, I'm going to give you the exact 4-rule playbook that can keep you from making one of the most expensive financial mistakes of your life. So after everything we've covered, the obvious question is, what should people actually do? Because here's the thing, I'm not saying nobody should ever buy a $40,000 vehicle. I'm not saying every car payment is a mistake. What I am saying is that most people never run the numbers before signing the paperwork. And that's exactly how expensive mistakes happen. After digging through the data, looking at ownership costs, consumer spending habits, and long-term wealth building patterns, I've come to a simple conclusion. You don't need a complicated system. You need a few rules that protect you from making emotional decisions with long-term financial consequences. And that's what we're going to cover right now. Rule number 1, the cash test. Before buying any vehicle, ask yourself one question. If I had to write a check for this vehicle today, would I still buy it? Most people immediately say no. And that's important because being approved for a loan is not the same thing as being able to afford something. A lender's primary job is to evaluate credit risk and issue loans. It's not to optimize your long-term financial future. That's your job. Big difference. What surprised me when researching consumer debt is how many people confuse approval with affordability. Those are two completely different things. A car loan can be approved in minutes. The financial consequences can last for years. A bank may approve you for a payment that quietly limits your ability to save, invest, and build wealth for the next decade. And you probably won't feel the pain immediately. You'll feel it later. Rule number 2. The 10% rule. This rule is simple. Your total vehicle cost should stay below 10% of your gross annual income. Notice I said total vehicle cost, not just the payment, everything. Payment, insurance, fuel, maintenance, registration, repairs, all of it. Let's look at a few examples. If you earn $50,000 per year, total transportation costs should stay around $5,000 annually. At $70,000, roughly $7,000. At $90,000, roughly $9,000. Simple. Most people focus on what they can finance. Quietly wealthy people focus on what percentage of income they're consuming. That's a completely different mindset. One mindset buys more vehicle. The other mindset builds more wealth, and over time, that gap becomes enormous. Rule number 3, buy 3 years used. This may be one of the most powerful wealth building strategies nobody talks about, because depreciation doesn't care how excited you are when you buy a vehicle. The average $40,000 vehicle can lose roughly 40% of its value within the first few years. That means someone else absorbs the biggest financial hit, not you. A vehicle that originally cost $40,000 may be available for around $24,000 a few years later while still providing years of reliable transportation. What surprised me when looking through wealth and consumer spending data is that many financially successful households don't drive the vehicles people expect. A lot of wealth is built quietly, not visibly. Many wealthy families understand a simple concept. A vehicle's job is transportation, not status. They let somebody else absorb the depreciation, then they buy the asset at a discount. That's not flashy, but it's incredibly effective. Rule number 4, the Home Depot truck rule. And this is the rule that almost nobody talks about, especially when it comes to trucks. Let's be honest, many truck owners aren't hauling equipment every day. They're not towing boats every weekend. They're not running construction companies. In fact, what surprised me when digging into truck owner surveys is how infrequently many pickups are actually used for towing or work-related hauling. Yet the ownership costs remain exactly the same every month. The payment doesn't care how often you use the truck. The insurance doesn't care. The depreciation doesn't care. The fuel costs don't care. Those bills keep showing up whether the truck is working or sitting in a driveway. Here's the alternative. Rent one when you actually need one. A truck rental from Home Depot or U-Haul can often cost around $20 to a few dozen for a short local job. Think about that. $40 a year versus potentially more than $1,400 every month in ownership costs. That's where the math becomes impossible to ignore. Most people are paying for capability. A small number of people are paying for actual usage. Those are not the same thing. Now here's what makes these 4 rules powerful. Individually, each one saves money. Together, they create a system. The cash test protects you from emotional purchases. The 10% rule protects your budget. Buying 3 years used protects you from depreciation. The Home Depot truck rule protects you from paying for capability you rarely use. Stack all 4 together and you dramatically improve your odds of building wealth instead of financing lifestyle inflation. And here's something that stood out to me throughout this entire research process. Personal finance usually isn't won through one massive decision. It's won through hundreds of small decisions repeated over decades. A few $100s here, a few $100s there, invested consistently, year after year. That's how ordinary people become financially secure. Not through shortcuts, not through luck, through better decisions. And now that we've seen the problem, the real costs, and the solution, let's bring everything together and talk about what this means for Mike and for millions of Americans facing the exact same choice. Let's go back to Mike for a second, because at the beginning of this video, Mike looked like he was doing everything right. Steady job, decent income, a growing family, and a $40,000 vehicle sitting in the driveway. From the outside, it looked like success. But after running the numbers, we discovered something important. The real cost wasn't the monthly payment. The real cost was everything hiding behind it. The insurance, the fuel, the depreciation, the opportunity cost, all the money quietly disappearing every month that could have been building his future instead. Now imagine 2 versions of Mike. In one version, he ignores everything we talked about today. He keeps focusing on monthly payments. He keeps stretching his budget. He keeps upgrading every few years. And he keeps telling himself he'll start investing later. 10 years pass. The vehicles are gone. The payments never really stopped. and his financial situation hasn't moved forward nearly as much as he hoped. But in the second version, Mike makes a different choice. He buys a reliable used vehicle, keeps transportation costs under control, invests the difference every month, and allows time to do what time does best. Compound growth. 10 years later, his vehicle isn't turning heads, but his investment account is. His retirement contributions are growing. His financial stress is lower, and for the first time in years, he has something many Americans are struggling to build: options. And personally, I know which version I'd rather be, because here's what this entire video comes down to. A vehicle is transportation, not a wealth building strategy. The monthly payment is never the full cost, and every dollar has an opportunity cost. Now I want to hear from you. First question: what are you currently paying every month for your car? Total, everything included, payment, insurance, gas, maintenance, all of it. Drop the real number in the comments. No judgment. Seriously. I'm curious what those numbers actually look like across the gray finance community. Second question: do you think the average American actually knows the real total cost of their car? Or are most people just looking at the monthly payment? Tell me yes or no below. I have a feeling the answers are going to be pretty interesting. And if this video made you think twice before signing that paperwork, do me a favor, hit that like button, subscribe to Gray Finance, drop a comment, and send this to one person in your life who is about to make a major car decision. It might literally save them thousands of dollars. And that's exactly why I make these videos. Because personal finance isn't about looking rich. It's about having options. It's about having freedom. And it's about making decisions today that your future self will thank you for tomorrow. Here at Gray Finance, we're not chasing appearances. We're building freedom, one smart decision at a time. I'll see you in the next one.